Kyle Meredith with the Weekly Feed, and I get the honor today of sitting with Colin Meloy, famous of the Decemberists. I've caught you on a bit of a solo run right now.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have you here. Thanks for joining.
It's nice to be here.
Yeah. And we should say it, you're on a solo tour, and I guess you're supporting a Kinks covers EP, but it doesn't seem like you're really supporting it. This almost seems like this is just kind of getting you warmed back up to get into the whole process again.
Yeah, the Kinks thing is a very limited run, and it's only available at the shows. So I started when I did my first solo tour I'd ever done outside of the Decemberists was in 2005, and I thought it would be kind of an interesting thing to have something at the show that you couldn't get anywhere else. And so I did a EP of Morrissey songs. And
which was kind of fantastic and perfect.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you for saying that.
Well, there was even a song on the last record you guys did that "This Is Why We Fight." That I could hear Morrissey singing that song. There was something so Maz about that.
Yeah. Well, that would be amazing. Amazing. So having set that precedent, I every year have done, or not every year, but every solo. This is my fourth solo tour. So. I've been kind of picking an artist to cover for a limited run set of CDs.
Well, it's kind of cool that you actually do that stuff, because I guess these days with bands that are coming up now in whatever age we're in, you know, the way the industry works now, I don't think people are doing B-sides and people aren't doing a lot of, I mean, you have some groups that, you know, do the tour only, but it doesn't happen as much. So as a fan, when you really fall in love with a band, to find something like that, because it's harder to find bands that kind of put that.
Maybe it is. I mean, more and more, the idea of having like an exclusive piece of merchandise, I mean, it just didn't make sense to press it on vinyl, which is, I guess, what we would have done. I mean, I feel like so much of the last solo tour I did was in 2008, and I feel like enough has changed that that when we were contemplating, it was like, do we do like a download code or something like that? Like, are people still buying CDs at shows?
So, but
thankfully, they are.
Yeah, of course.
So there's something kind of throwback about.
Well, you've got a bit of a different crowd than a lot of bands.
Maybe they still know how to use their CD players.
I have an intern who laughed at me the other day because I had a CD and was working one. It's like, wow, I haven't had one of these forever. It's like, really?
To be honest, I don't really even use CDs. I actually sold all of my CDs to a local record store in Portland for trade, and just have been buying vinyl.
Just done it with vinyl. So you do digital as well, I'm guessing, too. Yeah.
So it's all my music listening is digital or vinyl.
I haven't been able to get rid of any of them. I mean, I have my CDs and I have the vinyl and I have cassettes. I have a car that only plays cassettes.
Really? Cool.
So it's really more of a necessity if I want to hear something.
I don't mind getting rid of my CDs. I guess I don't have as much of a sentimental attachment, even though, you know, I still have the first CD I ever bought, kind of thing. But the cassettes, I can't.
Which was the first CD you ever bought?
The first CD I ever bought was Sonic Youth, Daydream Nation.
Way better than mine.
But I mean, I was, well, my God, I was probably 15 or something like that when I first got my first CD player. And at the time, it was a decision made as much because I liked Sonic Youth as it was like I knew that it was a really long record, but it was still it was like I was getting more bang for my buck. A lot of decisions were made that way early on.
I don't know. I don't know if it says anything about our characters. Like, you go for Sonic Youth on your first CD. Maybe because of my age, I was Shaquille O'Neal's Shaq Fu to Return.
Oh, okay.
I still got it.
All right, good for you.
I don't really rock it anymore, but it's there. I can't let go of it.
Wow, that's cool.
That's what you missed.
Yeah, I should have gotten into that.
Yeah, I don't think so. So that is what's going on, though. It does look like you're ramping back up into Decemberists. I know you've talked a little bit about that recently in some interviews, and that's now going to happen. I mean, there's going to be more Decemberist records.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Well, we can hope so.
Yeah, I mean, it's still the very beginning stages.
Sure.
Of even writing. Like, I've got a handful of songs, but I definitely want to have a couple handfuls. I always like to have a little buffer before I go in and just make sure that all the stuff's good. You're not just going at this point in my career, I don't feel like the quantity over quality makes sense. You know, just like recording everything you do. I want to make sure that everything is really
That's a good thing.
Good.
Yeah, are you looking to see that you have to have an angle for it this time? And I only look back at the last couple because now you've done the opera, you've done the rock opera.
Yeah.
Even the last one seemed like it kind of had an angle with the Americana flair to it. Does this one have to have an angle, or are you looking for it to? Because I started looking back, and the parallel, I mean, when you mention rock opera, the instant parallel is The Who.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, you have Tommy, and then you have Baba O'Reilly. Is this next record like The Who by numbers?
Every record should have a kind of a through line.
Sure.
You know, there should have something that connects it together, and I think the records have so far. I mean, and maybe certainly Hazards of Love, the through line was very clear, and yeah, King is Dead did have a kind of an aesthetic to it. I don't know. I mean, these things emerge.
So you didn't go into it saying this is.
Well, The King is Dead, I feel like, was kind of a reaction to the Hazards of Love, right, to a certain degree. It was a lot of songs that were written around the time of Hazards of Love and after that just didn't fit really, and I mean, well, not only literally didn't fit into the story, but also, you know, were I to even reuse the songs, just didn't feel right. So I had these songs kicking around that were, and they were all like. And then everything I'd written immediately afterwards was just, you know, short and concise and more spare. And so it seemed fitting that, you know, considering that collection of music, that we would do it in a very spare fashion.
Yeah. So when you're working on this one right here then, I mean, you've always kind of had a great way of taking events, whether it's happening in your life or out in the world, and putting them into these great epic stories. I mean, well, that's pretty much one of your talents. That's your talent as a writer, sure. It seems to me there's no drought of things going on for you to take from, and with these handful of songs, are you already finding that? I mean, politically speaking, world event speaking, it always seems like rock and roll is better when the Republicans are the loudest.
It's an interesting theory.
However that happens, you know, back and forth. And it kind of seems like that. I mean, I've seen you write a few things lately, you know, politically about what's going on, and I have to imagine that stuff is finding its way into your music again.
Maybe. I don't know. I feel like a lot of the stuff that I'm working on more recently is much more personal and not so politically bent. I feel like I dip into politics occasionally, but it never really took it on that. I mean, even 16 Military Wives, which I think is probably our most political song, is still just makes fun of itself. You know, it's not a very strong message of, you know.
From the outside, you know, from fans' perspective or whatever, we can see successful musician, world's taken care of for you. Yeah, that's what I'm getting at here. But you still, I mean, is that really a thing that you're having to look at? Are you having an issue with this? And are you happy with the way the whole thing is being handled right now?
With the ACA?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's complex. I'm a single payer guy, straight up, so it's not left enough for me.
Right.
I'm full-throated universal health care. And I think, and the worry going into this was that you strike a balance in the middle and then nobody is really satisfied.
Sure.
And so the muddle seemed like it was maybe inevitable. I supported it because it would made some inroads. I mean, in particular for the autistic parent community, the fact that you can keep your kid on your health insurance till it's 26 is a big deal, because a lot of these kids, it takes a long time to leave home if they ever did.
Yeah, for that.
And then what do you do after 26?
Right.
And then you have to try to figure out a way to get them health insurance. I mean, it'd be also nice if everybody was in together to make it work, but not only are we not in together to make it work, but you have one side of the political spectrum actually working actively to make sure it doesn't work. So, I mean, if it doesn't end up working, I mean, it just seems like something that everybody should get together and be excited about.
This is a civil war right now, right? Do you feel like we're in that? I mean, we're not going to get out the muskets at this point and go out and brother against brother or anything, but
I think it's dysfunction at you know, at its most pure. You know, I think it's terrible.
Yeah. But we've got to come out. I mean, now that it's started. I mean, that's the hope, right? You just don't go this far and then it all falls apart. And
well, I mean, I think that in the end it's a good idea, and that good idea will eventually win out. It's just going to take some time.
I've got that kind of optimism.
And you know, it's going to take old entrenched conservatives to die.
To die off, right.
In order for some of this stuff to happen. And that's going to happen. I mean, you can see it in all over just with a ton of different issues. And I think healthcare is no different. I think this idea that, it's in the nation's best interest to make sure that everybody has access to healthcare. I think that just makes for a stronger and better country. I think it's a patriotic thing to do.
I was going to say the same thing. I know we're kind of preaching to the choir to each other right here, but that was always the confusing thing. It's like, that's the most patriotic thing you could have, to have a strong country.
Yeah.
Where is
and
the
a healthy country, and making sure that everybody, no matter who you are, that you don't bankrupt yourself if something comes up. It's not your fault if you get cancer, but it can devastate you in more ways than just the fact that you have cancer. It's awful. It can devastate your family. It's terrible. People who are opposed to universal health care are assholes.
Well, I think the sociology report on this in 50 years is going to be fantastic.
If we're still around.
Got to have the optimism.
Right.
I did mention your son a minute ago, and I know you've done those interviews. We don't have to make it about that. But you're in the middle of a series of children's books right now, a children's novel. I don't know the actual genre, title, and everything.
Novels for kids.
Is that? I mean, can I see? Am I stretching it too far to kind of say that that's kind of why you got involved in that? Because here now you've got a kid. And you're going through, the phases that you're going through about, dealing with autism and everything. And now you're writing books to relate to him?
No.
Is that just?
Well, I think that those work together. I mean, the whole Wildwood thing is something that Carson and I had been talking about even before the Decemberists.
Right.
In some ways, predates the Decemberists. And we had, when we were living in a warehouse in Portland and working day jobs, we had hatched these plans about I would write this novel and she would illustrate it, and it would be a kind of a weird kids novel.
Right.
So it happened that having kids certainly helped. I mean, Hank is an avid reader, and he actually is hyperlexic. He started reading when he was 3.
Which is mind-blowing.
Yeah, which is pretty mind-blowing, and now reads, encyclopedias and things, and he's read all of them multiple times, and certainly has lots of opinions about them. So in some ways, I mean, in this last book, he wanted even to give some ideas and things like that, which I tried to incorporate. But it's something that Carson and I mostly wanted to do, and it just so happened that Hank was into it. I don't know whether we steered him in that direction, but.
Well, once again, it's kind of a perception on the outside type of thing, like
wow,
you have kids, what a great coincidence. Yeah.
No, I've barely grown up since I was 12, so anything like that happens is rarely to do with my kids.
And then I read you're having a second kid, or you've had a second kid?
We have a 7-month-old.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And this is good. I mean, this is one, I've heard that, having 2 kids is not twice as hard, it's 10 times as hard. And to be a traveling musician on top of it. Yeah,
that's tough. Yeah. Thankfully, my mother has recently moved to Portland, and so it's nice having a grandparent in town.
Sure.
But also, it's we waited so long to have a second kid that it's a little different. I mean, Hank is 7,
right,
and so he can occupy himself fairly well and is much more independent. But he's also on the autism spectrum, so in some ways he has sort of behaviors that can be very toddler-like, kind of delayed. So but also he has behaviors that are like a 30-year-old, so it's impossible to really judge it. So it's just like, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Whenever we have this kid, it's going to be tough. So
one way or the other, you're still going to be fumbling through it just like the rest of us.
Well, and actually that turns out to be no different than anybody else.
Sure. It's been fun catching up, Colin. Thanks much. We'll be looking forward to the Decemberists record and anything else. The 3rd book, that's
coming out in February. Yeah, Wildwood Imperium.
And that's the end of the trilogy.
That's it for now. Hopefully,
turn into a Wizard of Oz thing where eventually there's like 57 books. And I
would love to come back to it after a time. I've got some other kind of plans up my sleeve and Decemberist stuff potentially on the horizon, but hopefully we can get back to it.
All right, man. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.